right, we're back. Another special episode of the Diplomats, along with Superstition and Audacious Hand. A very special episode. We're going to break it down with Austria. If I'm going to get his name correct, is it Eustachio Rauli?
Yeah, that's pretty close.
All right. You got like a nickname like Stash or something?
You can actually call me Alex, my middle name. That's what I usually go
We're
by
calling
day to day.
We're calling you Alex. All right. Anyways, Alex is going to come talk about his performance as Austria in season 5 of the Nexus finals, brought to you by diplomacybriefing.com, where you can get all your diplomacy content totally free on the web at diplomacybriefing.com. And don't forget to join the Nexus Discord server. Pez made me say that. Otherwise, I might get fired from this highly paying endeavor. All right. Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself, what part of the country you're from, or the USA, and your diplomacy career.
So I'm from upstate New York. I've lived in this area all my life, a little bit east of Syracuse, if you know where that is. And I work in a family business. We have a 4th generation iron workshop, so that's what I do for a living. And I work on the office side of it, like AutoCAD and doing estimating, QuickBooks, all the various hats you need to wear in a small office. And as far as diplomacy, I don't really have much background with it. I have a lot of background with strategy games in general, in particular chess. I've played for over 25 years. And I never had encountered diplomacy until earlier this year. I had played Risk many times and always enjoyed it. But I had never played diplomacy until during the pandemic. Some friends got a game together online, and I just really it just really drew me in because it's such a complex game. Chess is a game of perfect information, and diplomacy is on the opposite end of the strategy spectrum of that, because you never know what everybody else is going to do, and you're trying to anticipate 6 other players on the board and to best optimize your strategy to those unknowns. And so I just started diving in. I played a lot of gunboat games. I played very little press before this tournament, but I joined the Nexus gunboat tournament in the summer, and I was fortunate enough to win that. I soloed twice during the preliminaries, then did 17 centers as Italy in the final. A lot of lucky breaks there, but it was a lot of fun. And then I just joined the press tournament on whim. I think I've only played like 4 press games before this tournament. So it was very much new territory to me, but when I play, I put a lot of effort in, and I try to play to win. And so I was able to get some good results during the tournament. I soloed in the first round, and then the second game didn't go as well for me, but I finished with a couple of shared board tops to get to the final. And so I felt like I overachieved in this tournament, but at the same time, I was very happy to be here and have the chance to play with such a great group of players on the final board.
Dude, that's pretty impressive. That's beyond beginner's luck to win the Nexus Gunboat tournament, which had some great players, not the least of which was me, and also in the press stuff. So it's fantastic accomplishment. When you got to this tournament, you were seeded 3rd, but you, given the Paris method of selecting powers, chose to drop to 6th. Why was that?
So I thought about this a couple different ways. I knew that Ewok was probably going to go for the 4th spot. And so I either wanted to be in the 3rd spot in front of him or down below. And if I went in the 3rd spot, I probably would have taken England, and I would have thought about maybe working with Doc in the game. Since we had played together on a previous board, I knew him a little bit and felt like I could work with him. Not necessarily that I would have definitely worked with him, because I always like to look at all my options, but just having that pre-existing relationship, gives a little stability because you know the player a little bit and know what to expect. So that was one scenario I looked at. But the other scenario I looked at was trying to work with Ewok, who I also shared a board with. And so picking after him and also seeing where Conk fell. Because, there were those three players, Doc, Ewok, and Conk, they're such fantastic players. And I knew that where they ended up on the board was going to shape a lot of this game because they're going to get attention from the other players. And so if I knew where they were before I picked my power, I felt like it gave me the opportunity to maybe exploit the attention that they were going to receive from the other players. So part of my reasoning in dropping down to pick in sixth is that I just wanted to see how that shook out, where all of them fell, and then decide accordingly. I like Austria, I like Italy, I also like England, and I thought one of those three powers would definitely be available to me in sixth. And having a better tiebreaker is also nice as the game winds down in the final years. I didn't have the tiebreak on Tom, but I did have it against Germany. So if I was able to tie Germany in the closing years, it could have come into play.
You would think
go ahead.
you would
Stitches,
think
go.
that you had a good working relationship in the past with both Ewok and Otto, that Italy would be the one that you want to choose because you would have a nice border and a wintergreen. That seems like the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I did think about that, but I don't know. I just really enjoy playing Austria. It's one of my two favorite powers on the board, and it was available. And I knew that Tom liked Italy, so I thought maybe by giving him Italy, it would help me get on his good side too.
Yeah.
So, it was a strategic choice. In hindsight, would Italy have been better? Probably, but live and learn.
Yeah, I've also, in my personal experience, I've found that when you rely on it might not be the best idea to rely on relationships from the regular season in the finals. Like the finals kind of exerts its own like pressure that seems to modify people's behavior. Like the gratitude doesn't seem to carry over as much as it would.
I'm not saying a decision. I'm just saying based on what he just said, it seems like it'll be better. I think he did a great job picking what he was strong in. I would have picked Austria too. But
the thing I'm getting is he'd rather be on Ewok's side of the board than Doc's, but he could have probably played with either.
Well, I mean,
I think it's tough to find a country that really can work actively with both Russia and France because they tend to be opposing forces that collapse together as the game progresses if they're both doing well. So I mean, I guess Italy can do that to a degree, but it's with France and Italy alliance is more just ignoring each other and going your separate ways as opposed to cooperation. And
like that.
Hey, I'm not plugging our own podcast here, but did you have a chance to listen to Ewok or Conk's interviews or both?
I listened to both of them, and I listened to like up to 1906 of Tom's interview.
Right.
And I listened to Doc's as well.
Yeah. Okay. So Ewok, he heard that he definitely wanted to work with you. He wasn't sure where you were going to be, but, he picked Russia. And you heard Conk sort of say that Ewok told him at some point that he was grooming you essentially to take advantage of you in some way. Do you have a comment on that?
I think we both were working each other in that regard. Honestly, I mean, I don't have any background with the game. So Ewok, Village Idiot, Chris, Craig, whatever, it doesn't make any difference to me. I don't know him beyond this season. And I like to come to my own conclusions about people as opposed to stories I've heard or whatever. And I mean, like Conk and VI shared stories about each other endlessly in this game to try to undermine each other. But that stuff just doesn't matter to me. As far as the relationship, like I just wanted to have it as an option. I wasn't locked on to necessarily being his ally for the whole game here. because he actually did stab me twice in that earlier game, and I remembered that. I didn't like I wasn't necessarily going in with a vendetta, but like if I got a chance to settle the score, that it wouldn't have been bad. And
Well,
but
you got it down to one center.
I agree completely. I agree completely with what he says about. See, this is such a difference. I think that Village Idiot, he over targeted, and I actually think that all this talk of targeting, I think that he has the exact right attitude that you should come into every game and evaluate things according to your own experiences, and that other players maybe over targeted, and that's what lost them the game.
Yeah, and I like. As soon as we did the Paris method, honestly, I knew that it was going to be EG versus F and AIR versus Turkey as the initial alignment. It was very evident to me that was going to be the case, but I wasn't necessarily locked onto that as a long-term thing. I felt like Doc was a smooth enough talker to flip one of the Western powers eventually, and I wasn't like the AIR. I mean, there's some prospects for Austria in it, but I was definitely looking at my options the whole way. So, I liked having that known factor in Russia and the ability to like DMZ Galicia and just know that it was going to happen. That's definitely an appealing thing as Austria, just to be able to free up that unit. But was I locked onto an AR long-term? It was definitely on the table. It may have even been plan A, but it wasn't. Like, I'm always looking at every option I have on the board. Just always.
Let's look at
That's
the
my
moves.
policy.
Well, before we get into the moves, just tell me a little bit about, I mean, you said it was going to be an AIR. Why? Is that just because of the meta against Turkey, or is there something about Conk?
I knew that Ewok and Khan couldn't work together. That was evident before he was even VI, because like we talked a ton about just like not just our own game, but about all the games in the tournament. And we talked even beyond our second wave game. And like I could tell there was something with him and Conk. Like when Conk soloed, it's something we talked about. And then when Doc and Conk were in a game in wave 4 and Germany was doing really well, and Ewok's like, that's gotta be Conk. That's gotta be Conk. And I'm like, I don't know. It could be Otto.
Oh,
and it was. But like I could already tell there was something there and some sort of history. And then like I got more of it as identities were revealed and some of the backstory got filled.
Were you inclined towards an AT at all to work with Conk, or you didn't want to hurt your?
I sent my first message of the game to Conk. That was my first message of the game. I was telling him about stealth AT from the get-go. We were talking about it right from the jump. I told him I didn't want to do it right away, but that there was
stealth
going to be an opportunity. Yes. Because
because the AT is not stealth enough,
Well, the thing is, like, Austria has to get out to a good start, because if Austria isn't +2 on Turkey, then they're basically losing to Turkey. And so I needed to get like some traction first before I was willing to seriously look at that as a possibility. But I told him right from the jump that I was open to it, but it was going to take a little time to set up. So yes, I was definitely open to that. And I talked to him immediately about it. And like kind of told you earlier that he leaked one of my messages to Russia, which sort of set us back a little bit. But I still liked the idea of working with him, because it just felt like the targeting with Doc and France and Conk and Turkey. And then like the idea was eventually that I would gut Russia. That was sort of the understanding between the central powers about how the game would develop. It just felt like very cowardly to me. Like I want to face the good players head on. I don't want to target them and pick them apart tag team style. I don't know. I wanted to look at alternate directions for this game to go. And, my execution on that was not spot on at all, but I was trying to make an effort to shake up the game later on.
No, I love what I'm hearing there. Yeah, that's great. Because you're exploding the tempo of the game. Like, that these like the heavyweights are going to play at a certain tempo, and you can kind of anticipate that.
Yeah.
And, AI is a strong alliance in the game. Tell me about your opening negotiations with Tom.
Yeah. So That's interesting. I want to just talk about my impressions of Tom in general first, because like when I looked at him in the standings, he was in the seventh place, and like he had 2 results that were really good, but 2 that were only okay. And I was like, no, he's probably a mid-tier player on this board. But then I did my homework and I went through his games from the tournament, and I was really impressed with the way he played. He controlled every board he was on. Sometimes he timed his move a little bit wrong, and that's why he didn't finish with a great score on a couple boards, but he exerted a great degree of influence on every board he played. And I felt like, given the degree of targeting that was likely in this game, that Tom was probably going to be one of the biggest threats to win, because he was a really good player that was going to fly under the radar. And so even from the get-go, I viewed him as a rival. Even though I wanted to work with him to a degree, I was always a little bit wary of him, because I understood how good he was from going through his games. And so our opening negotiations, I mean, everything sounded good. Tom's really personable and easy to talk to, and he's got a good tactical understanding of the game. And so he reads the board well. We talked about a lot of things at the beginning. I told him I didn't want to do a vanilla Lepanto, and I threw out some ideas: a blue water Lepanto, a rocky Lepanto, key Lepanto, or a variation of a key is what I said, because I don't like the army going into Serbia, but I like variations on that theme where Italy gets a dot. And so the one he latched onto was the key. Which, I mean, if you throw it out there, pretty much every Italy is going to say, that's what I want to do. And we talked about whether he would enter Trieste in the spring or the fall. I prefer the fall, because it lets you survey the board and see what's going on first. But he wanted to do the spring, and I did set some conditions for the spring, which we'll get into, but let's just say he didn't quite follow through on my conditions.
This is so sad. I'm so sorry that you had Tom as it. I mean, I like Tom, but you're almost bringing tears to my eyes. Like, I wish I was that Italy. Like, and Austria came to me and said, I don't want a vanilla Lepanto, and my ears would perk, and I'd be like, so I can move through where now? Like, what? Yeah, that's so sad. I'm just so sad. Tom, he's great, but he thinks within the bounds in a lot of ways. And I also have experienced this urge just to attack him as well. But yeah, go on. I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
You're not interrupting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to just go to the.
Well, I know everyone else wants to do that, but I have one other question. Sorry, which is it was such a big impact in the game, your relationship with Germany, and Germany flew under the radar, at least from our perspective, a lot. Tell me, like, what is your view of Austrian German relations in the game, and how did you, try and leverage that relationship?
So our relationship started out good. There was like a central triple chat that just sort of had like a basic framework understanding of how we wanted the game to progress. And so it was amicable at first, but Germany took it harder than anyone when I stabbed Tom, and he was like really upset about it. So we went through a rocky patch there for a while, like I think 03, 04. But after that, we had a really good relationship, probably from 1905 through the end of the game. Part of it was me learning how to communicate with him, because I like to be very in control of things and very detail oriented, and he's very hesitant to give out certain details. So I had to adjust my communication style to work within what he was comfortable with, what he was comfortable sharing, and what he wanted to keep in reserve. So I would be able to learning to say my piece, but not go overboard and try to pin him down on a certain course of action. So it was an interesting relationship, but it ended in a good way. We were on good terms for the whole second half of the game.
Well, particularly in 08. Okay.
So
go ahead.
Yeah. So Tom said that Germany was feeding him all his moves and he was feeding him to France. So I guess Tom had a better relationship with Germany?
Yeah, the IG was very strong early. Like there were a lot of concerns that the two of them were planning to um, try and shift the board to where they would be the two major powers in the end game. But I don't know if Tom was really. I didn't get to listen to that full interview, but it didn't seem like, from my perspective, he was really feeding useful information to France. But I don't really know. It's hard to trust that as Austria, that a Italy that's lurking right near France's border is actually looking out for my interests there, not wanting France to collapse. So maybe I was reading into things too much there, and Tom had the right read of it. But I was very concerned about that IG relationship through much of the early game. So was England, in fact. And I think Russia brought it up on occasion too.
Well, yeah, I mean, Germany did replace England with Italy later on, so England is clearly worried for a reason.
Right.
All right, the long-awaited moves. The most significant thing here is, two, no bounce in Galicia, and of course the move from Venice to Trieste.
Yeah, so like I knew 100% of the moves in the East before they happened. Everything went as expected. The Galicia agreement was in place, and I knew that Tom was going into Trieste. Now, I did have conditions for him going into Trieste in the spring. I wanted him to move Ionian to the Eastern Sea in fall of 01.
Not Aegean.
No, because I had Russia on side to help me with the Bulgaria. I wanted to get my fleet into Aegean. So if he goes to East, he pulls me into Aegean, and then Turkey's surrounded and just splinters right away. So that was the aim.
So did you hear Tom say, I think he said in the fall, that you didn't really bring it up until like...
No. No.
Am I right in remembering that?
Wow.
Yeah, he said that.
Yeah.
That's not my recollection of events, we'll say. He brought up convoying to Tunis because there were some rumblings of a Western Triple getting the second fleet to be able to like toss towards France if that came up. And I wanted him to go to East so that he could pull my fleet into Aegean spring 02 so that we could just collapse Turkey right away. But I did eventually agree to him convoying and getting the second build because, I mean, there were rumblings about the Western Triple out there. It allows some flexibility, and I didn't want to be such a stickler about getting my way this early in the alliance. And like, if it delays a turn, me getting into Aegean, that's not a big deal. I can do other things in the meantime, but it wasn't what I wanted.
And he's already sitting there in Trieste. It's not like you have a lot of leverage.
Right. So I'm not going to rock the boat too much at that point. But
so what was the plan for that army, though? Was it just supposed to hold in Trieste? Because I feel like if you were giving him a center, you didn't want it moving in any other direction. I mean, was it just to get a second fleet?
The idea to me, like I don't really like. I wouldn't want it in Serbia at all. I don't like the traditional Kila Ponto in that regard, even though it would have worked here.
Why not?
In some, I just don't see the use for another army there. And what's my fleet do in Albania if I pull Serbia down to Greece? I want my fleet to get to Aegean. That's very important to me as Austria. I think that's one of the most important strategic locations, even though I was almost never there in this game, but that was due to chaos later. So I just don't like that strategy. In some cases, I do like Trieste to Vienna, but that's mostly if, like, say, Russia breaks their word about Galicia. I didn't want to make Russia feel uncomfortable here lining up armies there. And like if he moves to Vienna, then I build an army Trieste. He's probably building an army Venice. And I don't really want a bunch of armies there. I want him to feel like his border is comfortable. And I also like Trieste is only 2 steps away from Piedmont. What if we need to attack France? I don't know at this stage. I think there's going to be an EG, but I've also played with Doc and I've seen him work aboard. So I don't know how long that's going to last. And so I want to keep options available for the AIR. Like that was one of my central tenets in this game, was to try to keep my options open for allies. I talked to Turkey right away about the stealth AT. The AIR could result in an AR later or an AI. It depends where pressure is needed on the board. And so I just wanted to keep as many options open as possible. And so Italy's primary value to me is to potentially keep France in check if France gets off to a good start. So I want to keep his units available for that purpose.
What do you think, Stitches?
I run a similar thing, but I have Italy go to Budapest, but it's primarily up at Juggernaut, and Vienna would go to Galicia. But if you're running an AIR, it's not a bad move. I actually like the option for Italy to just pivot out. So I actually liked it. It's just a lot of trust for Austria.
Yeah, just to me, if you're going to get that leap of faith, I feel like you have to go against both. Yeah, you have to go against Russia hard, not.
Well, I mean, when you're saying what do you do with the fleet? I mean, if you have a true key, right? Albania is supposed to go to Ionian.
Oh, okay.
You know,
I guess I'm quite familiar with that.
Yeah, I mean, but that that takes a lot of really trusting Italy.
Yeah.
Well, and also you have to trust that Greece isn't going to get bounced then, right?
Or Serbia, right? Yeah, I mean, any number of problems. So that's why they usually break down. I have no problem with it being in Trieste, but it's not the end of the world if you get the Ionian.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just, to me, it's just there needs to be an arrow forward after you get that level of trust. Whether you're going to Albania for the convoy, Budapest, Vienna, Tom was just so the wrong person. I think it's so funny because I admire so much what you're trying to do here, but just it's a shame you got the wrong person. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I enjoyed playing with Tom, but it was definitely a challenge at times. I think we viewed each other as rivals in this game for much of the game, and so there was just like this undercurrent of us trying to make things difficult for each other at times, and it sort of impacted a lot of the turns as we progress here.
Yeah, I mean, the irony, of course, is AI can be so powerful, but on a finals board, getting out, I mean, anything could have happened. So I see both sides of it. Okay, as we head into O2, obviously some interesting things happen here. You get Bulgaria and you get Italy to move out, and you get them to go, have the fleets in position.
Yeah, everything went as planned here with Italy. Getting him to walk out of Trieste took some convincing, even though it was always supposed to be alone, and I didn't want his army lingering there. Since we weren't fighting Russia, there was no purpose to it being there. But he was hesitant to leave. That negotiation went down to the wire because he wasn't available Saturday night. So it was like Sunday just before the deadline is when we finally were able to talk about this. And I was actually starting to talk about AT scenarios at this juncture. One of the negotiations that fell through here was with Conk. I was actually considering walking into Trieste and Tyrolia as Italy walked out as part of the stab and the start of an AT. But I had conditions for Conk that he couldn't quite agree to. I wanted to disband Bulgaria and have it rebuilt as a fleet. I would have gone in and gone out. And I wanted Khan to go to Aegean rather than forcing the black. Now he basically did what I asked in the end, but he didn't commit to me about doing those things. So I don't know. It was one of my regrets in this game because I felt like if he committed,
he basically said the same thing. He said, I did what he wanted and it didn't work out.
But he didn't tell me he was going to do it. Like if he told me, I would have gone into Trieste and Tyrolia, and then I wouldn't have needed to keep Bulgaria for my second dot because I would get Venice this year. But he didn't tell me he was going to do it. So
now, did you hear Tom say in his? Did you hear Tom say in his interview? And guys, I'm sorry, I know I hog it, but I am from Texas and I am fat. look, Tom said he knew at this exact moment with when you forced him to go to Venice that the stab was coming. He wanted you to stab. He welcomed it. He was very excited by it. All of this, true, untrue, or somewhere in the middle.
He probably expected it. Yeah. I mean, the negotiation over Trieste was a little tense. It was clear there was some frustration growing at that point. And, you know, I mean, as to whether him inviting it, you know, I guess it's a question of execution at that point. If I execute the stab well enough, then it can work. But attacking Italy as Austria is always difficult. There's always challenges with it. So you have to do it very efficiently if you're going to. And, you know, it was something I was willing to gamble on. It was. But unfortunately, this negotiation fell through. I was trying to work things out with Tom at the deadline. I was trying to work things out with Russia. And all the while, Conk is haggling over the details of how this is going to play out. And eventually I just threw up my hands and told him, look, we're not getting this over the finish line before the deadline.
No, I have to say too, though, you say you started, more as a gunboat player. I mean,
yeah,
when I look at this move right here, the amount of risk you're taking is truly just off the charts. I mean, you're just leaving Galicia complete unprotected. You have like a you're moving multiple units that could be interrupted through the middle of the Balkans, just having absolute faith in both sides. I mean,
any two of those powers could have supported each other.
Are you just were you being an adrenaline junkie? Did you just sincerely believe in them? Like, were you just, I mean,
I had a lot of trust in Russia. Like, we had a very good relationship from our previous game to the point where I felt very comfortable. It didn't feel like a risk to me here. I felt like he wanted me as his ally in this game very much so, all the more so with Conk in Turkey. I felt like, and especially with him getting bounced in Sweden here, I knew that was coming. Actually, I didn't tell him that. Germany was very concerned about the AR relationship. Doc was selling that as like a big threat to the board early in the game. And so Germany asked me a bunch of questions about me and Russia. And so what I recommended to him with Sweden was bounce in 01, let him in 02 just to keep your options open. I thought that was a reasonable compromise. But he never did let him into Sweden, which...
Did you have some deal with Russia? I couldn't get it out of EWOC, like what his real plan for growth was in this game, that you would turn on Italy eventually and get two of the four. Like, what was Russia, in your mind, going to do to grow?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I didn't really understand it either, which is part of what caused tension with us later on. Because, like, I figure if you know that Galicia is safe with an AR early, why not open north, or why not throw an army to Silesia, or try to do something to have another avenue of growth? That's how I would play it if I were in Russia. But Ewok has a little bit of a different style than me. I think in our first game, he was Turkey and I was Russia. So as Turkey, he sort of grew like an amoeba, and I was Russia. I was just attacking all over the place, different people. I could play a free and open game while he could play a more conservative game, but it worked as sort of almost a fire and ice combo. I think it worked less well in this game because of our respective styles, and it's something that I didn't really anticipate ahead of time, but I didn't understand where his growth was going to come from either. And I also felt like he wasn't really reacting enough to the German threat as the game progressed. And so I don't know, it just didn't add up to me. And like, he told me that he was not necessarily, like, he just wanted to survive this game because of how the targeting was happening. But I couldn't reconcile that with what the ambitious player I'd seen previously in this tournament. And so I always felt like I felt like he might try to take my centers late after I let my guard down. And so that played into some of the tension later.
Would you say that you eventually figured out what his plan for avenue of growth was?
I really don't know what his plan was.
Okay.
I think I figured it out. I think I figured it out when he moved to Vienna.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
I mean,
Budapest.
but
Budapest.
even then, I don't know. It was so complicated.
I know. I'm just teasing.
Yeah. uh, yeah. Well,
Okay, all right. We'll advance in the game here a bit, and you know, you definitely have the stab going at this point in the fall. You get the stab for position in the Ionian, and you take Trieste. So whatever little issue you had with Conk, it may have been too late because you would have had a better stab on Italy. You still made the move with Turkey at this point.
yeah, there were a couple factors that played into that. Like I had been talking with Conk right along, and I did feel like we sort of missed our moment, but I was still open to the idea of working together. And then, like we talked earlier about how Tom was supposed to support me into the Aegean Sea as soon as possible. That was the idea behind me giving him the dot early. That was what I was getting out of it. And here he wanted to try a convoy rather than helping me into Aegean, where we could just dismantle Turkey very, very quickly if I'm there. And that was sort of the last straw for me, because it told me that he wasn't interested in promoting Austrian interests in this alliance at all. He just wanted to get what he could out of it. It like made me feel like a wintergreen was incoming later on. So I felt like I had to strike first and send a message, because he wasn't leaving me any other option.
Man, you're just
and
making hand. You know, the
I'm
dude
just
is
loving this,
excited
yeah.
right now.
No, it's just so great to like talk, because I really loved your moves this game. Okay, and like it's just so great to hear you talk about it and realize I wasn't wrong about like the thinking. Well, I mean, I didn't get the thinking perfectly, but the thinking is super interesting. And but you're right. I just wonder if you were. I do wonder if your interpretation was right, or it very well maybe, or if he maybe wasn't creative enough to see what you were saying too. But sometimes
yeah,
you can mistake those things.
yeah, I'm not certain if that my perspective on all this was correct. I can just only tell you what I was thinking at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it it's so hard when you're in the weeds of the game, when you're getting so much press, and like everybody in the East was super active with press with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it, sometimes it's easier, like from an outside perspective, just looking at the board to see what's really happening. And that's why I
Yeah.
appreciated your analysis so much throughout this game.
Thank
But
you.
it's when you're in the thick of it, there's like all these things bouncing around in your head. It's so easy to like get a skewed perspective of the board and make decisions that aren't entirely rational. But this is what I felt like I had to do at the time, because I didn't see where my further growth was going to come from out of this AIR alignment. Like I needed to get to Aegean so I could get into Con. That was my next center. And if it wasn't going to happen, then what am I getting out of this at this point?
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right. So, by the way, the Lady Razor stuff's fantastic.
so good.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
So
I think
nice.
everybody loved this move here.
Yeah, this was one of the most fun, just in general moves, like all over the board.
Yeah, this was, man, so much happened on this turn. Uh, I felt good about parts of this turn for me, but I also, there were things that went wrong here that, like,
Well, there are three issues I want to discuss. The first is the move from Smyrna to Constantinople, which
yeah, I didn't want that.
you know, that's kind of Conk being Conk. You know, and his explanation to us on the interview was, he only asked for it at the very last second. I don't think I was being unreasonable. You know, it should have been worked out well beforehand.
No.
Give us your take.
Okay, so like I was trying to engineer an RAT alliance at this point. My idea, and like in the stab on Italy, was basically to replace Italy with Turkey as the Mediterranean power. And then we could combat the EG once it had finished taking out France. Like there's the ability to pressure every part of the board with that alignment. But for that to happen, we need to sort out the situation around the Black Sea. We need to de-escalate. And so I was going back and forth between Ewok and Conk and trying to settle this somehow. And so, and one of the reasons I felt comfortable with an RAT, even though that's typically terrible for Austria, is because I just knew that the two of them could never work together. Like I had no fear of that in this situation. So even though like on the board, it's a very bad idea for me to risk that alliance, it just, that was never the fear. The fear was that I couldn't get them to actually cooperate within an alliance with each other.
I don't, you know, what's funny is that they both emphatically deny that that's true, which honestly lends even more credence to what you're saying, because they're so psychologically unaware of their like relationship.
Yeah.
They can't even, process it.
For season 2, I think it's very apparent that they were not going to work together very well.
Yeah.
And that's
So
who's going to reap the rewards of that.
what I wanted here is I wanted like Romania to lift so it could start to work against Germany. I wanted Fleet Sub to Rum, and I wanted Fleet Ankara to Khan. And I felt like I had leverage over both of them to a degree, because I could take Rum if I wanted to, or Greece was the carrot for Khan. He was going to get Greece if he helped me. But I wanted his fleets to move into the Mediterranean. I wanted Russia to move the army up so it could attack Germany. And I felt like I had leverage over both so that I could make this work. What I didn't anticipate is that the situation where neither of them do their part. Like if Conk does his part, but Russia moves into the Black Sea, then I'll take Romania as a result because he didn't do his part. Or if Russia does his part, but Conk doesn't, then I don't give him Greece. But the scenario where neither of them do their part to de-escalate, and we just have all these units clustered around the Black Sea that are creating this tension and are not active in engaging the other side of the board.
Yeah.
I didn't have a solution for that scenario. So
They're bad dogs. Conk was definitely the worst dog though, so I don't blame you here, but yeah. Russia was a little better because just kind of like trembled and sat in Romania. Conk kind of was a little bit impudent and moved to Constantinople.
That's my experience playing with Village Idiot too. Is he'll do half of what he says, and the rest of it won't be a bad thing. It just won't move at all.
He always has plausible deniability.
It's so frustrating.
Like when, yeah, and I mean, by the time the turn adjudicated, I knew it wasn't going to happen the way I wanted, but like I was really actively trying in negotiations to make it happen, because there was a scenario where this could have worked for a while at least. I was frustrated that I couldn't get it to progress.
So am I correct in reading that you were not surprised by Italy enlisting Germany's help to bounce Australia?
He told me he was inviting Germany down. I was surprised that Germany actually did it at the cost of Burgundy. Because like once you get into Burgundy, do you really want to lose it? But I knew it was a possibility. I negotiated with Germany down to the wire on that. And I was debating between whether to try for Tyrolia or to move Vienna to Bohemia and Bud to Vienna, to put 3 armies there and force Tyrolia the next turn. But I felt like I had made progress in my negotiations with Germany. He fooled me though. And so it was a bounce.
And then,
I mean, you still took a lot of chances here as well. Like once again, I mean, I almost feel like you were drunk on the power of press half this game, you know, like, oh, the things I can do. I'm just going to move 3 armies that could be interrupted anywhere, and then convoy 1 straight into Naples in the spring.
I mean, Naples could have been so easily bounced.
So easily.
No.
This does not move.
I wasn't worried about that, honestly, because if you really look at Italy's position, I feel like the convoy to Rome was definitely the best move. It covered the most scenarios. It put 2 units on every supply center he had. And I know Tom's a smart guy, and he would see that that's the best move. And so I felt very confident that either Naples or Tunis was almost a guarantee on a direct convoy.
It's a multifold thinking hand talked about.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, like attacking Italy from the bottom of the boot up as Austria is very difficult. So I was kind of counting on having the pressure from the top to sort of come
Yeah.
together. And
Yeah.
when that bounce happened, it threw a wrench in my plans. I wish I had moved to Bohemia and Vienna so that like Germany is feeling some pressure here as a result of his interference in the East.
It's interesting when you talk about Germany. I wonder if in like the international meta mafia training facilities, they like emphasize this because it sounds so much like playing with Pez with these three-way chats where you're like kind of bound by this kind of strange web of laws, but they'll like act against you. That is frustrating. Yeah, you really could have taken him out here now that you mention it.
So it was just one of those situations where I knew it was a guess and I guessed wrong. And and then combine that with them actually making real progress against France here on the other side of the board, pipping Picardy. Yeah. I was expecting Doc to pull Picardy into Burgundy here and cover Paris another way.
Actually, if I recall, Tom suspected you of drawing up this move for them.
No.
Am I right, guys, or am I misremembering that?
He said that, but I think he was thinking about another part in the game. I did okay. Feed orders that direction at various points in the game, but I did not want France to fall quickly. I was very concerned about a quick resolution in the West. I wanted it to draw out as long as possible, especially with Russia not getting into Sweden and like having no real prospects in the North. So I was very pro-Doc defending as well as he could, even though I wasn't really actively helping him here yet. I guess I regret that, not putting the army in Bohemia here, because this would have been the moment where Russia and I could have actually collaborated against Germany. I felt like we missed our moment. By the time I got up there, he was getting pushed back and we couldn't create real pressure. And so we hung Doc out to dry in this game, and I regret that.
Well, I think you sort of explained this move, which caused Hans' podcast to be, I think, a profound reevaluation of Austria's play, where he went on a love fest with you. But what I'm hearing, and then you have your own word, is Russia didn't do what I wanted him to do. Turkey didn't do what I wanted him to do. Italy's strong. I don't have two in the North. I got to get something back on track here. So let's get the gang back together against Turkey.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it felt like EG were approaching a breakthrough against France. And if there isn't a Mediterranean power, and as Austria, I can't really be that power. If there's no power to resist them, then why would they ever stop working together? Italy can just swing around Iberia. And I was seeing down the road a little bit, if I continue this slow grind attack against Italy, those English fleets, nothing is going to resist them coming into the Mediterranean down the road, because it's going to take me a while to finish Italy if I keep going, realistically, especially if Germany kept trying to help. I wasn't 100% sure that he wouldn't try to bounce me again if I went to Tyrolia here. In hindsight, he didn't, but I didn't know that. Tom obviously supported that move again. So, I felt like I had to look at who was most valuable to me here. And as much as I hated to stab Conk, Turkey can't do anything against an EG. If I go with Turkey, then I'm going to be the sandwich that they all eat from later on in the game. If he's keeping his position compact like he did, and his builds are clustered near my territory, the goal was to help him to spread out into the Mediterranean. But if a compact three-center Turkey is still very dangerous, and it just felt like it was going to come to a point, if I kept working with him, where he would want more of my centers rather than trying to go towards Italy.
Devil's advocate, I will say though, I mean, if you had blocked Tunis and held, that would have been pretty good too.
Yeah.
But I will say though, yeah, I don't think you were saying last turn that you should have moved to Bohemia earlier. To me, Bohemia was just I just think you kind of went there too early all game. Like if anything,
Yeah.
actually, you know, it's funny because I watched your game, and in a lot of ways I sympathize a lot because I've tried to do this kind of Austria-Russia thing a few times. And I just feel if Russia's not committing to building northern fleets, because both of you guys are going to have to build fleets, you know, at some point. Yeah, just going for Germany early is just almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean,
Although,
I think it was less about a breakthrough and more about taking a little pressure off of Doc, giving him some defensive options. But
okay, well, that
at the
shows
same
you were smarter
time,
than him. Yeah.
you're right that like we're not going to crack Munich or Berlin with these
Yeah.
token efforts by throwing armies there into anywhere from Tyrolia to Prussia. Those
Yeah, but
spaces are
you don't have a lot of options. If you move to Tyrolia, you could have moved to Tyrolia and maybe, but you weren't trying to accomplish that with Italy at this point. If you move to Budapest, it's anti-Russian. I mean, what else is the army going to do?
No, I
yeah.
think he has to. Yeah, this move to Bohemia. I'm sorry, man. This move to Bohemia, you have to admit, this was a mistake.
Unless
Like,
you
Yeah.
have
if he had,
something
yeah,
moving out of. So, yeah, should have taken Tyrol.
All right, you got to address. I mean, Conk freaked out. Did he freak out internally as well as externally to Discord? And all you said was this thing at the bottom here. I'm sorry, Conk. I'll say more about all of this after the game. It's after the game. So you said it a little bit, but it's time. And this was, I think, this is one of my top 3 Lady Razor drawings. And then he just went on and on and on. And tell me about what happened with Conk. My face is going to be off screen for a second. I got to light my propane, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit on Discord after this, but most of his frustration was being vented publicly. And I mean, I get it. It's frustrating because like the odds were stacked against him to start this game. He was facing a 3-on-1, which is never a fun thing to go through. And then I finally give him some hope of getting out. And then like almost as soon as that happens, it's taken away. So I understand how it must have made him feel in that situation. And like it's his 3rd finals that he is not going to do well in. It's becoming evident. But it just, I needed him to stick to the script of what I needed from him. I needed him to become the Mediterranean power. And I did not want him in the Black Sea because that would have been harmful to me. So I wanted to see Fleet Ankara move to Khan and Smyrna, the army, move up to Ankh. And if Russia broke his part of that deal, I would have sided with Konk because if he followed through, then I would have felt the loyalty to stick with him. But once it became clear that the bounce in Black Sea was just going to be forever, I just didn't see the future for the Austrian-Turkish alliance. And so, I wanted to make that work in this game. I really did. It was something because I knew that Russia and Italy did not see value in Konk. So I cultivated that relationship right away just because you never know who's going to have value to you in this game. And I wanted that option to be on the table. It wasn't necessarily going to be my end game for sure. I wanted to have options between Turkey and Russia and less so Italy, but still on the table to some extent. But it just didn't quite work. We missed our timing on the first try, and then the second try it wasn't executed as well as it could have been. And so I had to pull the plug at this point.
It's such a sad tale when you could ally with anyone but Italy when you're Austria. God, I feel that because it's like the one person who I needed in life let me down, So,
but hey, you got this right.
It just was.
Listen to Alex. It is the good dog, bad dog. He's using behavioral characteristics to temper his play.
He's using positive punishment. If they were to do this, then I would punish them.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, but that was like a consistent issue in this game, is trying to find an ally that didn't move the goalposts of things we agreed to. And it would all sound good at the outset, but then when it plays out, it would be a more favorable version to them where their position is a little safer and they're getting more out of it. And I don't know, I couldn't quite find an ally to run with in this game. And I don't know. I wish I could have, but in the end, I just ended up attacking everybody and stabbing everybody. And I felt like I didn't really play this game the way that I wanted to in the end.
Well, you could have kept the pressure here on Italy. I assume you knew his moves.
When? Right here?
Yeah.
I did think about it, honestly. I actually thought about a double stab here. I thought about taking Venice and Smyrna because I was pretty confident that Conk wouldn't cover Smyrna because the convoy to Syria is beyond obvious.
Well, so, and Rome.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have gone for Rome or not. In hindsight, it would have been open, but I didn't know that. And maybe because
double stab would have been so good.
It would have been.
You should have done that.
I should have, but
I didn't even see that. Oh my god!
I felt like Russia had put up with a lot with me, flip flopping. I just didn't know if I wanted to put him through that again, and if I could keep his loyalty if I did.
Okay.
Because, I don't know.
You could have gone Austria blob mode. Fuck Russia. Fuck. There's a point of growth in Austria where just fuck everyone and just balloon out.
I regret that I acted cowardly in this situation, but it's definitely a stab where I have to ask forgiveness from Russia afterwards rather than permission. I can't tell him that I'm going to do that ahead of time. I have to just do it. And he's begging me for support against Germany at this point. And I felt like I would lose him if I went for that. And I didn't want, that was the relationship I felt best about in this game at that point. So it was weighing, do I want to keep that relationship versus do I want to maximize my current growth on a risky play that could go wrong?
This is exactly what it's like playing with Stitches. You're just kind of bound. You're just weighed down by his feelings about shit, and you can't do what you want. It's very
but it doesn't seem like you did get on the same page with Russia here. You could have supported him. He supported you into Munich. Instead, you support Trieste to Tyrolia.
I told him that he needed to move Silesia to Munich, and I would support that here, that if he didn't, he was probably going to lose Silesia. But I don't know. We could not get on the same page about how to best approach Germany in general. And I found it very frustrating because I could see him losing Silesia coming a mile away here. If I go to Munich, then yes, I guess it doesn't get backfilled, but I don't know.
It was probably his own guilty feelings about what he was about to do to you that prevented him from trusting you.
All right. So Ewok said this was agreed.
It was. We talked about it a lot. I wanted it to be Serbia because I didn't want to lose a home center. And the idea was he would take Serbia now, and then once I got into Khan, he would get Bulgaria instead. That was my idea, but he wanted to bring the army closer to Germany. And I mean, there is some logic to that because you go Bud and Galicia, and then we can eventually get the 4 armies on Germany's border. But it was a reluctant agreement. I don't know. At this point, I'm trying to keep too many people happy. I'm very worried about the EG because it's going to progress very quickly from this point. So I'm making some concessions that I probably shouldn't have, and just to try to get everybody organized and on the same page so that we can resist them and present a united front of the East against the West is resolving very quickly. The East is a mess. Right?
Why are you worried about the EG? I have to confess, I don't. Why is an EG not beneficial to you?
It should be beneficial to Austria. It's going to push any ally you have and save you from an AR detriment.
Yeah.
I guess at this point, it just seemed like their relationship was so strong with each other that if we didn't give them a concrete reason why they had to break, they would not. And I don't know, I guess the perception distorted the reality of the situation here for me. But it felt like they had the only alliance on the board that was worth anything, that was actually coordinating well, and that they just were not even entertaining the thought of stabbing each other whatsoever.
Which
Now in
actually
hindsight,
lends itself to your original philosophy of this game, though, that in a game of this level, I feel like if you're going to have a level of coordination that they were displaying, you almost have to have a little bit of fake conflict of some kind in order to move it forward. So it's kind of
yeah,
just a confirmation of your original thinking to some extent.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, realistically though, this is not a good Austrian position compared to what I had a few years ago.
No,
Like, you look at Winter 02 to Winter 03 to Winter 04, it's just going steadily downhill. I have no armies in my core 4 centers here. In fact, I'm losing Bud.
And it would get worse.
It would get worse. Yeah.
You're not done yet with
There's more.
crappy positions.
No. Oh, goodness. What a
So,
mess.
well, Russia took the Black Sea. You're in position, but you lose Bulgaria. Now,
So-
I guess you and Italy are fighting. What
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because we had an agreement. I talked about moving the goalposts earlier, and we had an agreement that Italy would get Greece in fall 1905, and that I would probably need his help in spring 1905. But when spring 1905 rolls around, he's like, "Look, I need to get into Greece now," and I'm like, "No, I can't do that. I'll lose Bulgaria first of all, and I need your help to actually make progress against Turkey here." And that was the source of me moving to Trieste and trying to move into Tyrolia, because I felt like he backed out of a deal that we had. And I thought it was very clear. Now, I mean, maybe from his perspective, the clarity wasn't there.
And by he, we're talking about Italy.
Yeah. Yeah.
The clarity wasn't there.
I don't know. I mean,
His nice use of the passive voice.
But
Too much tomfoolery.
Yeah. The clarity wasn't there. It's definitely some really expert use of passive voice.
Yeah, correct.
So yeah, it got messy here. Like,
so you knew from your negotiations that you and Tom were back at it.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I wasn't going to let him into Greece if he didn't help me to finish taking Turkey. That was the idea. Russia got a center from me, and Tom would get a center from me, and while I would consolidate Turkey. They were basically getting their share out of what I already had. And that was the whole idea here. But when it came time to actually do that, they didn't want to follow through, I guess. I mean, especially Tom. And
was the idea that you would take Ankara and get Black into Khan and then get the Russian fleet out?
Basically, yeah. And I would have let Tom into Greece if he had cut AG in here. Like, that's what I needed from him. And, it just, things got really messy in the East from this point forward. I felt like we missed our window to really get on the same page here. If he had cut AG in, I think we could have worked something out where we were all reasonably happy.
I really sympathize with you so much, because it's so frustrating to deal with an Italy like this, in the sense that this kind of play as Austria, you're always taking such a high degree of risk that you would think Italy would be happy to do these things.
Yeah. I mean,
Italy has a relatively comfortable position.
So do you think you were surrounded by stubborn players, or do you think you're too controlling?
Everybody on this board was stubborn. That's one of the things that stood out to me about this finals board, is like you have 7 players on the same board who like are used to writing orders for other people and are absolutely never have orders written for them. And so you're putting them all together, and just everybody is trying to convince other people to do something specific, and nobody's listening to anybody. And it's just the negotiations are very frustrating because it's
Well,
difficult to get coordination when everybody is trying to sell their own plan forward. And
it's true. It's just the relationship you get where you are actually working on orders together is so rare and precious. It almost never happens.
yeah,
You
and
know?
like make no mistake, I'm extremely stubborn myself too. So I played into that as well. I tend to be very controlling and detail oriented. So it's not like I'm saying I'm exempt from this. I played a
Well,
part.
we all are, but I played with both Conk and VI, not Poser Tom, and I think we share a similar instinct, which is when everything's clear, then there are no mistakes. But VI and Conk don't necessarily care if you're not 100% happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody's trying to get like what I call as a 60-40 alliance. They want to get 60% of the benefits while you get 40%. They're trying to shift things towards that. And so you're having like all these players in the East are like really high quality players and they're looking out for their own interests. And it just, they're not settling in negotiations ever. And so it's just difficult to, like, if I'm making Russia happy, then I'm not making Italy happy, and vice versa. If I'm making Italy happy, then Russia's not happy. There was no middle ground where we could find where everybody was satisfied with the arrangement. That was the issue I kept running into when trying to make these three-way alliances work, is that there was always a sticking point where one or the other couldn't accept the arrangement that was being proposed. And so, like, I mean, this is why the East never resolved. It just never resolved because we couldn't get on the same page.
And a point in fact is the this.
Yeah.
I mean, it did get worse.
It did get worse. Oh man, I got blindsided by this too, because like this was probably the turn where Ewok was more detail oriented with me than any other turn in this game.
He wanted to know what you were doing.
Well, beyond that, but like we were working out his moves in detail too, which we hadn't done previously. Like he would be sort of non-committal about things, but this turn he was like very straightforward about what he was going to do. And like the plan was for me to tap Munich, and he was going to move Warsaw to Silesia with support from Galicia, then backfill with Moscow so that he could get rid of that German army. And it would have been successful. And we also had a plan in the south that could have eliminated Khan. I wanted to support Greece with Serbia, but he wasn't guaranteed Khan in that scenario, and he was losing St. Petersburg, so he felt like he needed to guarantee Khan. So I had to add the extra support there. And
I really hate that you got that he's making you look at this again. I know. I mean,
it's okay.
Being grind stabbed is the worst. It's just the worst. Yeah, the kind of protracted pain of it.
I don't know. Like it's tough because I'm not sure that he really did want to fully burn the bridges here, but
you heard him say he wanted to.
He would have been happy.
You heard him say that he thought he could ask for forgiveness afterwards, and
right, because like really in our previous game, he had dotted me, and we had worked it out afterwards, right? I was Russia, and he ended up taking Romania and Sev in that game, but we finished the game working together. So I think from that pre-existing relationship, he felt we could work it out. But I mean, I don't appreciate getting stabbed, and that one time with him was the only time this tournament where somebody wronged me and they didn't get punishment as a result. So like, I don't know. Even in that game, he saw what happened when Doc stabbed me and what I did to Doc after that. I don't know. I felt like he should have known that if he wanted to choreograph something, he should have just come to me and told me, let's work something out. Like I'm open to things like that. I'm willing to show a degree of trust if you want to choreograph some sort of fighting between us, but he didn't. And I understand why he didn't in retrospect, but I wish he had. And I don't know, like
you have the correct reaction. Yeah. The fact that he actually, well, I don't want to I just feel like the fact it's pure hubris that he ever thought that he could come back from this to me. But yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah, but I mean,
I-
look at Austria's position. I think he thought he would have a little more of a dominating relationship than it ended up being.
Well, exactly. He tried to murder him. He was like, "Well, I'm doing this. I'm going for it. He needs to be eliminated now." He even prioritized that when he retreats to Smyrna later on. So
yeah, I don't know. It's a complicated relationship between him and I, but I think what he actually wanted was to basically turn me into a junior partner, where I was small enough that I wasn't a real threat to him, but I was actively doing things that helped him moving forward. And I just wasn't going to settle for that, or at least that's how I felt at the time. In hindsight, I don't know. It's complicated.
Well, okay. Well, let me ask you this: your press was it clear you're going to go to war with him? Were you honest with him, which is fine, or were you like, let's get on the same page and see what we can do, and then turn around and do what you did to him?
I let him lead the way on the press after this to see what he wanted to do, and I determined my actions based on that. And what he asked of me seemed absurd on this turn. And so I just went to war with him. I wasn't like straightforward that I was going to attack him. No. I definitely
I had
just
the
let
same
him-
experience. I mean,
Yeah.
he demanded I defer builds. He's high on demands.
well, the sad thing about a grind stab is it can last for, I don't even want to tell you how many turns. There is, he just knows how to burn that personal capital to the ground.
Yeah.
I really think that's what he's going for.
I don't know if that was the case or not, but I know that once he saw the EG break on that turn where he stabbed me, that I think it changed things for him. Like, I think he regretted it after that for sure.
He said he did.
I don't know. Had that not happened, I'm not sure how it would have played out. I really don't know.
Well, England would have had 2 to 3 builds. Yeah,
right.
true.
And so
How would it have played out if he had retreated to the black?
Differently.
But I mean, on the one hand, right, you wouldn't be down another center. I mean, you took a center back, but on the other hand, that fleet could be useful. I mean, you could take it at any time. He tried to pitch it like this was in your favor.
He was desperate to get rid of him.
I didn't want him to retreat to Smyrna. Well, I mean, not that I minded him leaving black open to me, but like, he didn't really talk to me about that. He just did it. He was very upset that I didn't follow through on what I had agreed upon here. Because, like, I don't know, he wanted me to pull Trieste up to Vienna, and he wanted me to do some other things that would have left me vulnerable in Turkey. I was very worried that he was going to pull Romania down to Bulgaria and drop Sev to Armenia and try to take control of Turkey here. Like, that felt like the natural continuation of the stab to me. And the moveset that he proposed to me for me to do would have left myself very open to that, among other things. And like, I just felt very confident that he was trying to set me up at that point. I was wrong. He actually followed through on what he said he would do, but
First time for
he would, he was pretty upset after my moveset here. He said it was like an over the top reaction to what he had done. And
2/3 of your home centers.
This is how actual war starts. Okay, I'm just sending my troops into this little disputed area. You came back with nuclear weapons.
So I don't know. Like, it was clear that the relationship was starting to break down at this point, and I think fall 1906, that negotiation was our last chance to salvage an AR relationship, and we just couldn't get there. It couldn't get there to my satisfaction, and so I decided to continue pursuing the Russian attack. At this point here, like I had a good relationship with Germany, like from this point to the end of the game. And Germany was asking me to cut Galicia here. And so I knew exactly what Germany was doing. He was pulling Livonia down to Warsaw. And I told this to Russia. I tried to get involved in the Scandinavian discussions. I told him he could move St. Petersburg to Finland and Moscow to St. Petersburg to put pressure there. Or like he could have also crushed Livonia, knowing what Germany would do. And I wanted to get a commitment from him that he would take anti-German action if I didn't keep attacking him. And
I feel like
he
just
basically
watching this game, I was whispering that same move in his ear, like, please move to Finland. Yeah,
And he basically told me that Scandinavia in the north was none of my business at this point. And I don't know. I felt like if he's not actively working against Germany, what is his end game? That's the question I couldn't answer. I couldn't answer it aside from him attacking me, basically. Like if he's not attacking Germany, who is he attacking? There's nobody else to attack except me. And so I just couldn't reconcile what he was telling me with what I felt like his motivations must be. And I don't know if, like from the things we talked about afterwards and like his interview, I don't know if that was actually the case. I think he actually did want to reconcile at a certain point, but I just couldn't get there. And so I was, I had to lean into the attack here. And like, unfortunately, even though I'm gaining centers this turn, like I know I can't build because I have no way to protect Trieste here. And
did you think Tom would do it?
I mean, I told him I was leaving it open, that I was going to give him a chance to like a fresh start here. I was trying to, if he lets me build, we can work together to the end of the game, try to do something about Germany and like try to restore some balance to the board. Because if Russia's not doing anything against Germany, who else is going to do it? It's got to be us. And so I just told him it's going to be open. I hope you don't doubt it. I hope we can work together. But
and were you sincere when you said that?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to kill Russia at this point, so
yeah,
I was very sincere about that, and but that was basically the last straw with me for Italy.
I was curious. Just answer me this question. I guess if the North was none of your business, according to Ewok, you weren't sure what Galicia was going to do. Because
no,
otherwise you could have kept Trieste and taken Budapest. You might have been able to. I mean, there were options, but you went the safer route, not knowing what would happen. And technically, Vienna's at risk.
It is, right, and that's, I wasn't sure what he was going to do here. He had options, like he could have. I think it's pretty obvious that Germany is going to cover Sweden here. So St. Petersburg isn't really at risk. Moscow can support Warsaw and so can Ukraine. So Galicia could be free here. And so, yeah, I mean, I still wasn't sure what his intentions were here. And he's already in Smyrna. He's asking me not to take Smyrna from him. I could have done, like, I didn't have to support Konk back into Khan. He could have, I had the option to put him into Greece.
No, you had to do that.
That was great.
The fans, I did, but I mean, we had talked about putting him back into Greece there too. But I wanted to try to make things work with Tom. So I moved past that idea. And so I decided black was better strategically than trying to take Smyrna away here and would leave some options open for the future. But
I mean, first of all, it's objectively cool that Austria is in the black, no matter what center count you have.
Yeah.
Second, one of the things I liked about your game is you lost every home center. I mean, Trieste a couple times. Yeah. I mean, you lost four times home centers. I mean,
not to mention the fact that there's a tied second place and that two of the people in the second place lost all their home centers.
That's actually
pretty amazing.
That's ridiculous.
All right. So you got it back together with Germany, but Italy, no, you knew you were going to take Trieste back. You left Bulgaria open for Konk, I'm presuming. Or
Okay,
was
yeah,
rum
so-
supposed to cover?
Let's talk about this. At this point, Russia is threatening to throw to Germany, and that was part of the disband in St. Petersburg and whatever. He's very upset at me for retaliating to his stab. And so, like, at this point, I'm trying to handle multiple variables. Like, I'm trying to get Germany to deal with Italy because Italy's becoming a threat with MAO, and he's going to consolidate Iberia. I'm also trying to like prevent. I don't want Russia to start throwing to Germany while there's all those armies there. So I want to de-escalate that before I try to take Russia down, because I want to actually be the one to benefit from his downfall. So I basically pulled a stop and go here. Kind of wasn't on board with it, but I made sure that Bulgaria was going to be empty for him. When I forced him out, I did everything in my power to make sure that he would have a retreat and not be done, because I wanted to keep him around for later. But like, me exiting black was never really intended as a ceasing hostilities with Russia. It was just to get his guard down.
And it's a spring move.
Right, exactly.
So in that case, why wouldn't you move? Why didn't you keep the Black Sea?
You wouldn't have two on Smyrna.
The agreement was I exit black, he exits Galicia. He didn't hold up
Mm.
his end of the agreement.
I see.
And so, yeah. And I also, the other thing, I told him that Tom was moving to Aegean, and he tried to talk Tom out of it instead of just bouncing it. And I asked him to just bounce Aegean because we don't want him there. And he didn't. And I was not happy about that either. And like, I don't know, there were just so many things here. Like, if he was really anti-German, he knows Germany's probably pulling back here because Italy, Burgundy. So you can move Warsaw to Livonia and bring Galicia up. You can like try again to put real pressure on Germany, but he just didn't want to. He was very upset at me. And so I don't know.
I
agree
feel
that-
the angst. How much were you working the press lines? Give me, it's a family-owned business, so you won't get in trouble. I mean, how many hours a day were you spending on this game?
Too many. Yeah, I mean, I talked with everybody in this game consistently throughout the game, with very few exceptions. Like, at a certain point, like, Conk wasn't talking to me after I stabbed him, and other situations like that. But for the most part, I was always talking to everybody. And at this point, because I'm not very threatening, everybody's actually talking to me with substantial stuff. They're telling me things that are actually true rather than things that are just trying to mislead me. So I have a pretty good idea of what's going on everywhere at this point. Yeah, I mean, Germany's talking to me extensively about what he's planning, and like, I'm talking with England. I actually told England the move that got him back into Norway. I think it was a couple moves ago. And I mean, Italy and I have a decent dialogue at this point. He knows I'm retaking Trieste, but I played it like I wasn't really that upset. Like, fair enough, I stabbed you earlier, you stabbed me, no big deal. So I mean, I was talking to everybody at this point. I was even trying to work out a three-way arrangement between France, England, and Italy to pressure Germany. That didn't come to fruition, but I was trying. And so, yeah, I mean, I was very active on the press. That's the thing too with Discord. Like, this press was allowed through Discord, not just through Backstabber in this game. That was a new experience for me. And so, like, you're getting notifications every time somebody talks to you, and like, you can see when they're typing something, and like, it's too much. Honestly, it was like so much all the time.
What did you set your Discord status as? See, for instance, Stitches likes to set his to idle. I preferred mine as unavailable at all times.
Idle. Mine's green.
Yeah, mine's usually green. Yeah.
Oh, actually, I forgot the constant green. That one's really intimidating. when you see someone who's green all the time, you just, I have to admit, I wish I could set that. You can't set it to constant green, can you?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's too bad. That'd be good. That'd be good. How
Yeah,
about
I
you,
mean,
Ed? What are you setting yours
You
to
could
these
probably
days?
set a macro to go off
I'm setting it to
your
off,
computer.
not around, unavailable.
Oh,
Don't
like the
talk to me.
gray?
Yeah, like
Yeah, I set mine to gray too. Yeah, cool. Well, fellow grays up here.
all right. So I like this picture. I think Stitches really liked it.
Yeah, I mean, it dropped at this point in the game, but at this point, I wasn't really directing them anymore. But like, I enjoyed it because it was like it applied to early in the game. I was like trying to
Did you
punish
get
Italy for
grief?
things he did, and
Did you get grief about Hand's comments about how much he liked you? Did people talk about it with you or no?
um, Russia talked with me a little bit about it, but
I
like just
knew it.
jokingly.
I knew it.
It wasn't like I don't know. I don't know if the degree to it, whether it got under people's skin, but I'm sure it did to some extent. You know, it,
Dude, VI frightens
it
me.
was
Does
funny.
he just
though.
win off of pure meta or something? I mean, damn.
He's just he's the easiest player to talk to on the board always. in my
Always.
opinion.
I agree. No matter how it goes, he's ready to talk, and sometimes it's heated a moment, but
Yeah.
talk about
And
in a series of good moves that you had. This was great.
Yeah,
this was my shining moment in this game.
yeah.
I was in such a good diplomatic position at this point that I basically knew. I think I knew 100% of the moves on the board at this moment.
Oh,
I knew everything that was going to happen, and I
that
had a
sounds
plan
so
A,
nice.
a plan B, and a plan C. There was a plan with Russia, a plan with Italy, and then there was a plan if both of those came together, and that's what ended up happening here. So like, and I wasn't completely out on working with Russia or Italy at this point, but I sort of did a litmus test with each of their intentions, like if they were really committed to it. With Russia, it was how he handled Silesia, because I told him that Munich was going to Tyrolia and Silesia was going to Munich, so he could walk in there. He decided to force it, but if he had gone Galicia to Silesia and also occupied Prussia, that would tell me he's actually trying to do something against Germany, but he didn't want to do that. With Italy, it was just trying to get him to be straight with me. I asked him if he was trying to use Khan to undermine the plan that we had. The idea was that I would take Khan and Smyrna, he would crush Konk in Bulgaria, and we would just, that whole area would be either red or green, and we would like just have a stable border at that point. But he was trying to get Konk to move to Khan, and he was asking Russia to pull that fleet to Khan. And so I knew even as he was talking to me about getting Bulgaria, he was trying to undermine my part of the plan. And so it's just like, I just was so frustrated with everybody at this point, and I just wanted to lash out at everybody. And so
Well, you did in a great way. And the Bulgaria move by leaving it open. Hand and Stitches, they were gaga.
Yeah, I was pretty happy that this worked out. I mean, it took so much work to arrange it. I put more work into this turn than any other turn in the game, because I felt like the only way I could get back into it is if I had like a home run turn. I needed a home run. I couldn't get a double. I couldn't get a triple. I needed to get real momentum on this turn. I needed to get everything right. And so getting Galicia open, making sure both of them were moving to Bulgaria so that I could retake Greece and make sure that
Bouncing in Tyrolia, vacating Trieste. What a risk.
I knew that Germany was coming down. I invited him down, actually, because I was thinking about using him against Venice. But at the last minute, when I realized how everything else was going to come together, I decided, him being there might not be as friendly as I was thinking in the first place when we talked about it. So I just bounced it.
Brings the mutual balance without them knowing.
Yeah, Germany was expecting support into Tyrolia there, and so that didn't happen.
What was the thinking about not taking Smyrna with Ankara instead? Were you worried about support being broken, or?
No, I knew I could. It just basically I lose support of Conk after that, and basically there's 3 enemy fleets to my 1 there on that coastline
Kong could be
afterwards.
dead.
No, you didn't.
He'd have Greece, either that or I
Yes, that's right.
have to let somebody
Yes.
take him
I
out.
see.
And so I felt like it was better where, like, I wanted to give Italy something to worry about. Like, if Turkey has 2 fleets, I have 1 fleet, then Ionian technically isn't safe. And so I wanted to give some life to Conk. And like, I enjoyed working with Conk. I enjoyed talking with him. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like we even missed an opportunity earlier in the game. So I was trying to make amends to that. And
This was great. But later you needed to recognize Conk.
Yeah, I made mistakes later. I did.
The cockroach.
Yeah.
I think this is what we're going to use for your picture on the podcast. This one.
Go on.
Bringing Conk back was definitely a decision.
Okay, spring 1908.
Yeah, everything went pretty much according to plan here on my end, except, well, no, I knew everything that was happening in the East here, basically. I was pretty positive that Russia would try to dislodge Galicia, so I made the move to just not cut Ukraine and make sure that I held that location. Hold on 1 second here.
I'm gonna piss.
The alarm clock went off.
Sorry about that. Moving to Armenia is pretty straightforward follow-up against Russia. I had a feeling that Aegean would try to go to Greece. I tried to tell Conk to move into Bulgaria here, but I didn't push it because, I mean, it's his call. So
hey, worked out great for you.
Yeah.
It did. But I don't know. Like, I didn't want Tom to keep Greece though. So, I mean, even though it did work out good in a way, I wanted to have the ability to retake Greece in the fall. So I was a little frustrated about that. But at the same time, you know, having the destroyed Russian army is a good thing. So
who would have predicted?
Yeah. And also at this point, Germany and I are still talking. So he told me he had to move to Bohemia just for diplomatic reasons, but he was telling me everything that Russia and Italy were talking to him about. And so he told me that Italy was supporting him to Tyrolia. We were already talking about potentially putting him into Venice at this point, because it looks like Germany's starting to come under real pressure here from Italy and England. So like that relationship's still very good at this point. We'll talk about what happens next shortly, but yeah. So I mean, this was a good turn for me overall.
Yeah. Here's where it goes downhill.
Yep. So
there's 3 things.
Many mistakes here. Many mistakes.
The first one is the Armenian move. Well, I guess you're prioritizing Ukraine, which is fine, but Conk takes Smyrna. You're signaling you would want Armenia to move out. Tyrolia, you invite him into Venice. Why don't you say what's going on here?
Yeah, so this was basically last minute decision making because I couldn't figure out the right solutions. I also made some mistakes by changing certain moves. I originally had Vienna support holding Galicia and bringing Romania up to Ukraine and Serbia to Romania, which would have been a much stronger Russian attack. And I wish I had left that. That's one of my major regrets about the end game, because this was my opportunity to lift Serbia effectively. I also
Mhm.
like I could have just tapped on Khan here to keep Conk on 1 dot, and I could have kept a lot more control over my own territory by doing that. I
Mhm.
would lose his allegiance, but there's definitely merit to doing that here. Like it's something I probably should have considered. Um,
Could have
Yeah,
killed
and
him in '09.
Constantinople is just so much more of a valuable tile than Bulgaria. Like when in doubt,
yeah,
just
yeah.
the
The
south coast
problem
of
was
Bulgaria is. But it was a busy port this game, though. Both coasts of Bulgaria are very busy ports.
the thing was I caught wind of a scheme between Italy and Germany to try to work together against me, but like I had a feeling Germany was actually going to double cross Italy, but I couldn't. I tried to engage with Tom here, but he wasn't really talking to me much at this point. And
Okay, I actually have a
um,
question for you. Tom said that, so you see the report. He actually ordered Greece into the Ionian Sea. He
that was a
also
misorder.
ordered.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a misorder because he was moving. He also ordered Constantinople to Bulgaria. Do you believe that he might have misordered Greece to Ionian on purpose in order to substantiate his conspiracy theory that he was about to do something against you while he was moving?
Um, I don't know. I just took it as a misorder at the time.
I mean,
I
he
don't
has a
know.
history of these misorders, is all I'm saying in this game.
That's true, but like I also told him I was attacking Greece here just to maintain stability. And so I don't think
Hmm.
he meant to not support hold Greece. Like moving to Bulgaria was a last minute choice that was not what I told him I was doing. And it wasn't a good move, really.
Okay, yeah, just checking, just checking.
And like I couldn't get a hold of Tom to warn him about like Germany being ready to double cross him. And I like the best I could do is warn England he's about to get stabbed. But it
No, he
there
was
wasn't
definitely
really much.
fatigued here. This is a bad move for him too.
It was a bad move for everybody except for Germany. I mean that was basically the turn where Germany solidified his status as the strong favorite, right? I mean,
I
the door
agree.
wasn't closed for everybody else at that point, but it was an uphill battle. And like, especially with the bad blood between Italy and I, like it was very hard for us to work together at that point. So, um, yeah, it was tough. Nobody did well here except for Germany. And
Yeah, I
well,
mean, I think the
Punk,
thinking
Punk.
is, well, Conk did, but I think the thing is, maybe you could have gotten some layoff from Russia a bit if you went after Conk near the end, uh, but maybe not. Maybe Russia would have done the same thing to you that Conk did. Tough to
I
know.
don't think it was salvageable at that point between Russia and I. And honestly, I like once I commit to an attack, I try to follow through on it.
Hmm.
I don't know. There had been enough manipulation between the two of us at that point that I didn't want to try to make it seem like I was using him down the stretch. I just didn't feel good about trying to do that.
Now, now
Well,
we
maybe you
employ
should
we
have. Maybe you should
yeah.
add that to your. Maybe you should add that grind stab to your arsenal and do what. If you had done what he did to you, just told him that you'd be friends with him and stab him again. Maybe it would have worked out better for you. But sorry,
Okay,
Ed, go
this was
on.
the Armenian move I was thinking about in spring of
Yeah.
'09. Why you didn't move from Rum, or why you didn't cover
Yeah.
Ankh, or did you think Conk was going to do this? Were you buying into whatever he was selling? That like, tell us what's going on here.
So I felt like I had to bring that army up if I was actually going to finish off Russia in this game. I felt like I
Mm.
needed another unit in the vicinity. And I felt like, I don't know, I felt like Conk and I were in a good place at this point. I felt like we had made amends for earlier. And like I wasn't against him taking Ankara at a certain point, but I didn't want him to do it yet because I wanted to try to play nice with Italy here for a little bit. And so, like him taking Ankara forced me into taking Greece, which broke down that relationship with Italy. And it also opened up the end game for him where he just annihilates my position. And yeah, I mean, completely objectively, what I should have done there is told him to do basically what he did, and then just moved into Khan and Smyrna.
Did you expect him to support you into Tyrolia?
Into Tyrolia.
Well, because you follow your army from Trieste from Serbia, so it seems like you expected to take Tyrolia.
That was more a token thing to show Tom that I was trying to relieve pressure from Greece when I really wasn't trying to. I knew it was going to bounce. It was just like for optics.
Okay. That explains
Yeah,
it.
the Khan Smyrna move, I think in retrospect, was the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bohemia.
You could have had
everything.
Could have had everything in the fall.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I played this.
No, I think you're right.
To win it.
I disagree with them for what it's worth. I didn't disagree with you moving Armenia out as much. I mean, I think that when we interviewed Conk, what I was struck with was that, and I take him at his word that it wasn't a murderous revenge against you, but he had this like personal journey in this game, and he decided to end the game just expanding in like a logical fashion, which isn't something he's always done, you know.
But like I should have realized I couldn't leave the door that wide open to him. I think was where I felt like I was counting on him not to have a chance to win, and I shouldn't have left my guard that open at the end. But at the same time, it's hard to play actively while trying to defend every year to make concessions somewhere. And it was like the only door open to me that I could maybe plausibly convince him not to attack me. Because nobody else valued Conk in this game. Nobody else did. And so I felt like that was what could get me past the earlier stab. But at the same time, I don't fault him for the way he played the end of it. I mean, I get it. I definitely get it. So, yeah, it was a calculated risk, but it's one that didn't hit.
Yeah, brutal. And I appreciated your message on Discord at the time. We're like, just glad it's over. I'm just, there's a line from John Cleese in a movie that I can't remember, but he goes, it's not the losing that bothers me, it's the hope.
I feel like he would have only said that if he has. Did you have a plan where you might win and that was theatrics, or was that an authentic message?
We talked about choreography, Conk and I, but like he was supposed to leave Bulgaria empty here, and I was supposed to retreat from Greece there. And then I retake Greece in the fall or whatever. But I guess he didn't quite understand what I was doing. It was sort of a last minute thing. And also like free supply centers, why not, So it partially communication error, but partially I think he just wanted to get dots and see how well he could do. But I was definitely talking to him about choreography at this point to try to make it look like I was less of a threat to win, but actually having real prospects. Because I wasn't going to win without his help. So it wasn't worth thinking about scenarios where he doesn't help me. It's only worth talking about the scenarios where he does, because that's how I win. It wasn't happening another way at this point. So, although actually technically I did have a potential winning move in fall 1910 that I didn't do, and it wasn't really a strong consideration, but in hindsight I could have pulled this off. What I would have had to do here is support into Munich from Bohemia so that Tom can't cut it. I need to bring Sev down to Rome to block, and I need to get England to move to Belgium, which was very doable because England preferred me winning to Germany or Italy. So it was possible to get.
I'm so sorry that you saw that.
Yeah.
Don't look at the map afterwards. It's too painful. It's the worst when you see this.
That's the thing, though.
You poor thing.
My style of play is that I'm not afraid of losing. I'm not afraid of doing things that could end very badly, because most of the time people don't expect them, and sometimes they hit and it's glorious. And I enjoy playing, and you learn from losing. I've learned from every player in this game. I've learned something about how I'd like to play moving forward.
And how is that?
Well, like, let's see, things I've learned from every player in this game. Let's start with like England was just a thoroughly reliable player throughout the whole game. He didn't ever say something and then not follow through to me, or in general, I'd never heard of him doing that. So just knowing that he could be counted on in the end game, that was something I found valuable from my perspective. And so I'm sure people would appreciate it from me if I'm a reliable player. And like France, he was just, the way he persevered in this game and was so stubborn in his defense and just kept trying and trying to find a way to stay alive. It was really impressive. Germany, I think maybe his defining trait in this game is just how level-headed he was the entire time. Never too high, never too low. I tend to go up and down a lot. But he was very calm, consistent, cool under pressure. And that's how he didn't really make a lot of enemies in this game. And even though he was the board leader forever, he never really came under fire the way many runaway leaders do. Nobody just disliked him that much. And Tom just, like, he works the board so well. He talks to everybody, and he like, he's a master of that 60-40 alliance I alluded to earlier, just making sure that things are just slightly angled in his favor in any arrangement. And he's just very easy to talk to, and he's a really good player. Conk, I mean, the level of enthusiasm he could summon for the game, even when it was clear that he was out of it, it just, like, it was contagious, his enthusiasm. Like, you give him a sliver of hope and he's like full throttle. And so that's something that impressed me. And like Russia, like, I'm such an impatient player. I'm always wanting to do something, but Russia was so patient, and like strategic inactivity is something that's not even in my toolbox whatsoever. And yet he had a brilliant position.
Apparently not in his.
I mean,
joking. He's not even listening at this point.
Be true to yourself, though. Don't go down the strategic inactivity route, please. I enjoyed watching your game far too much for you to do that.
No, but like, it's,
I don't want to see support holds from you ever, young man.
I'm not, like, I'm just saying, like, you can, it's good to have things in your toolbox to pull out on occasion. It doesn't have to be your fastball, but just having it available to you and knowing when and how to use those things.
That's true.
There's always room for growth. But I'm always going to play like me. And it was a fun
idiosyncrasies and style is something that makes this game great.
Well, congratulations on winning the gunboat game. Congratulations on making the finals of this game. For someone who's
well done
in their first year of diplomacy, you've taught me a lot of things. I think your analysis of this, of what happened, was super educational. I don't know if Hand or Stitches has final thoughts, but Alex, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, it really was awesome talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me and for all your analysis in the game. I really appreciated it. I listened to, I think, everything except for the final year of podcasts. So
don't blame you.
Yeah. It was.
I joined the Nexus gunboat tourney for the first time. I've never really played much gunboat, so if you want to hit me on Discord and give me some pointers on how to do this, that'd be much appreciated.
Sure, we can chat. I look forward to it, and hopefully we share a board in the tournament.
Why not?
Yeah, he'll win.
With no press, though. Definitely not.
Make sure you do the acid Lepanto.
Yeah, that would be pretty impressive.
No press video relief after this game.
All right. Thanks so much, and good evening, and thanks again to diplomacybriefing.com for sponsoring us. Good night, fellas.
Good night.
See you guys.